Hello everyone, today I want to do a message on communion, but before I do that I just want to quickly acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people whose land this video is being recorded on and to give my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Now, one thing that we can do in any sort of personal relationship to really strengthen those relationships is those moments that we can take to really appreciate and acknowledge everything that the people around us do for us. Now, aside from the fact that taking communion is in obedience to God for Him telling us to, if we looked at communion the same way that we look at these moments where we really let someone know how much we appreciate everything they do for us, we can really start to see the great opportunity and the beauty that this really can be in connecting in our relationship with God, and what really we can get the most out of it if we value it in the same way. Now, I don't think I'm the only one that's going to admit that, I don't always come to communion with the same level of reverence, or intentionality that I would like to say I do. But I don't always think that this is due to spiritual reasons, but there's also psychological ones. And in exploring these, I want to give us a tool that I've been shown that has really blessed me and that I hope I can bless you in the same way. Now, another practice that I see a lot of parallels between with communion to, compare the pair, is a dawn service. Now, for those of you who aren't aware what a dawn service is, it is a practice that happens once a year in Australia, except maybe not for recent years due to the big COVID elephant in the room. But otherwise, it's a ceremony that's held at dawn, as the name suggests, to pay respects to those who have served in the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps in World War I and II and other wars, to thank them and to really pay our respects and our acknowledgement and to remember the sacrifices they paid for us. Now, every year that I have gone to these services, there's a real sense of intentionality and reverence that seems to come from everyone who was attending. And when thinking about this, I thought of two reasons why I think that there is this level of reverence that isn't always there at communion. One is because there is a real intentionality in being there. You don't just end up or rock up to a dawn service. It's not compulsory, it is completely optional. And whenever you go there, you know that you've gone there because you've made an effort to do so. You've gone up when it is still early, knowing that you're going to be standing outside in the cold and knowing that you're probably going to find it really difficult to get a good parking spot at whatever area that you've showed up to do the dawn service at. But if you're still there, it shows a real intention in being there. Another reason, of course, is because it's held once a year. Now, with communion being held every second, third, or fourth, what have you, week at church, we don't always show up to church with the intention of doing communion. And when it becomes something that we do quite frequently, these things can start to become automatic. Now, to give us maybe an encouragement and an illustration of what we can do to refresh our approach to this, I want to look first at the introduction to communion that Christ gives in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, of course, the four Gospels, and in 1 Corinthians. Something that I noticed is that he doesn't actually talk about what will kill him, but he talks about his blood and his body being broken. Now, the design for crucifixion, and many medical journals that have been published, have concluded that this was how Jesus died. And we also know this in the reference or the record of how in Scripture it says that when he was stabbed in the side to check if he was still alive, blood and then water separately came out. These are all things which is a clear sign of death by suffocation. Now, it strikes me odd then why would Jesus talk about his body being broken and his blood being pouring out if that's not what actually killed him? But when I thought about this, I realized that it is the reason he did that is because the disciples saw his crucifixion. And when they looked at him when he was being crucified, they didn't see the internal suffocation, which happens over a long time. What they could see was that he was beaten and bloody and bruised beyond recognition. They could see his body being broken and his blood being poured out. What they could see was a visual demonstration of his love for them. Now, if we look at communion the same way, and we use an illustration that I'd been shown by someone at a camp by a pastor, and it's really blessed me and blessed everyone else there. And I want to bring it to mind that maybe this can help refresh, and if we use this, if we make the intentional choice to remember this illustration, then perhaps we can come with a new refreshment to communion. Now, in many different churches, there are many different practices to doing communion, and I know that not everyone does it the same. But in the churches that I have been to growing up, we use the practice of just having a little plastic cup about only this big and a little piece of wafer or bread or something broken off as the emblems. Now, this is not inherently a bad thing in any way. I think it's very good that it's very cost effective. We want to steward our finances well. It's also more hygienic, and it avoids waste. But sometimes I think that maybe a really useful illustration is to think about the blood that Jesus poured out, about the liters and liters that he poured out for us, and that his body was broken more than just a little plastic cup and a little piece of wafer. And then when we realize this and we bring this illustration to mind, what we can do is remind ourselves that the emblems themselves are more than just a little cup and a piece of wafer.